Hey y'all, I'm Steve Hess, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. I'm honored to be here. A lady named Deborah, that some of y'all may know, shared my name with Hallie, and I'm grateful to be here. There's always three stories, right? The story I want to tell, the story I tell, and the story I wish I would have told. And you're going to get the middle one. My sobriety date is July 29th, 1992. It used to be, well, it's July 29th, 1992. For a long time, I used July 27th, 1992, because that's when I stopped smoking dope. And I forgot that I had drank beer the following 2 days after that. So about 20 years into it, I had to just modify my sobriety date. My home group is Jumping Off Place. We meet Tuesday nights up in Raleigh at St. Mark's Church. It's a literature-based study. I also have a home group service position at a Zoom meeting. During the pandemic, I joined a Zoom meeting that was based out of New York City. It meets 7:30 a.m. every day of the week. And I've grown to love and know those people as friends as well. And I've known them for 5 years. I've got a sponsor. He knows that he's my sponsor. I meet with him every week when we're both in town, and we do basically a 10th step. We talk about what my relationship at work, at home, and AA is. And then we read some AA literature. I have a sponsee right now, and I'm volunteering to do some extra service work while I pick up another sponsee. Let's see, sobriety date, sponsor. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. Whole family is just littered with alcoholism. You know, my dad was an active alcoholic all his life. The best way I could describe, my mom moved out of her house when she was 13 because of her alcoholic father. And one of the better memories of one of my uncles on my mom's side was I was about 12 years old, and he was telling me it was okay to drink. We were at a party, and I had two cousins that were about 4 and 5, and they were tag teaming a half keg, a barrel. One of them was trying to work the tap, and the other one was trying to use a cup to get beer. So drinking was just part of my life. And for the longest time, I didn't want to drink. I didn't like what alcoholism did. I thought alcohol was the reason that my mom left my dad, and why, I had divorced parents. And when I was 12, I moved in with my dad. My parents were split up, and my dad's mom convinced me as a 12-year-old that if I lived with my dad, he might stop drinking. And so I left my mom and sister, moved in with my dad, and that was kind of my first experience of AA, sort of. I watched my dad walk past an AA meeting. So basically, he was supposed to be going to AA and didn't, and so I ended up going back home with my mom. And probably age 14 or 15, I started hanging out. I had, when I grew up, I definitely was that stereotypical alcoholic who felt like they didn't have the rule book. I never felt comfortable, never really fit in. In school, I kind of vacillated and went between the real smart kids. I was like in college prep classes and other kids. And my three best friends, the people that I hung out with, 3 out of 4 of them were sons of alcoholics. I just found my kind, and I met my wife later on when I was actually sober, but she was the daughter of an alcoholic, and I'm convinced that you could put 2 alcoholics in a room of 50 people furthest apart, and by the middle of the night, they'll find each other. Anyway, I started drinking when I was 14, And basically, we would go out on weekends. I would drink and I would get sick. And I always, I drank and hung out with guys that played football and that were bigger than me. And I just thought I was a lightweight. And basically, I could just never handle my liquor. You know, I was always one of the first ones to puke, pass out, black out. I didn't even know other people didn't black out. I just thought that was part of the drinking process. I found other substances. I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but I found other substances that were actually easier to get in rural Pennsylvania as a 16-year-old, and they had less side effects for me. In other words, I didn't pass and puke and pass out. So I did other substances as well. And basically, I would try anything once if it didn't kill me. And the only reason I didn't do some of the things I didn't do is because I got sober before I was exposed to them, you know? Yeah. So I went to a school where it was a class of 200, and in ninth grade, my class rank was 20th. By the time I graduated in 12th grade, my class rank was 180. So I don't even know how that's possible. They socially promoted me and got me out of school. I had to drop a calculus class, so my overall average was enough to allow me to pass. And I was enrolled to go to college, but didn't want to go, so I ended up working for my dad for about a year. And all my friends went away to community college, which was about an hour away. And for that, for a while, I didn't drink because my friends weren't around. But I started going up to my friend's place and started drinking, and again, and pretty much stayed clean and so dry for a while. I would drink on weekends. And the summer when I was 19, I fell out of sorts with my dad, and I got a job working construction. And basically, it was rural Pennsylvania. They were building a mall. This was in '88, and a bunch of folks from Birmingham, Alabama came up. They were traveling to build the mall. And you know how everybody says, my business drank a lot? You know, like car salesmen drink a lot, waiters drink a lot, cooks drink a lot. Out-of-town construction workers definitely drink a lot. And so I got a job that summer working with these out-of-town construction workers. They called me John Boy because I looked like John Boy from the Waltons, you know? And that was one of the best summers of my life. I remember sitting around drinking with the ironworkers after work, and they set my shirt on fire. And at the end of the afternoon, we're in this big parking lot. I had my sister's Honda Prelude, which was kind of a nice car, kinda. I was gonna fix it up for her, I never did. Anyway, the scene was I was driving the Honda Prelude like I was a bull, and the ironworkers had empty beer coolers like a flag, and I would drive past them, and they would slam the car with the cooler. You had to be a drunk 19-year-old to really enjoy that. So I did that, and that was the first summer where I was introduced to all kinds of different substances. I was so naive. I remember one guy, he's like, "Hey, John Boy, do you get high?" And I was like, I thought there was a sign behind my back or something. And he's like, "Well, why don't you twist one up and we'll smoke it at lunch?" And I thought, there's no way people smoke at lunch. And so fast forward, one Saturday, I worked that job, and I started feeling some consequences of my drinking and drugging, and I went away to college that fall, and I would stop by my friend's community college on the way to my college, which was about 3 hours away, to pick up alcohol and other stuff for the week, because you need that stuff for the week. And I would come home on Friday to work and drink with my buddies, but if you go to the Thursday night parties, you find the Wednesday night parties, and if you go to the Wednesday night parties, you find the Tuesday night parties, and soon you find the guys that are drinking Mondays. And so I found those guys real quick. And halfway through the semester, I did the math. It was just about physically, mathematically impossible for me to pass a lot of my classes. Like, I had never even been to my English class. And so I just left. I didn't withdraw, I just left. And that turned out to be like 12 credits of 0, which is really hard, really hurts your GPA after you get sober and are trying to get back into school. So I left, and I didn't go home and tell my mom that I left. I just went to my buddy's community college. So I was the kid that was 19, sleeping in his buddy's community college apartment for the rest of the semester. So I did that. I got a job in the winter, and I had lost my license, and my mom, being the enabler she was, would get up at, I think we would leave the house at 6. She would drive 45 minutes east to drop me off for a job where I start at 7 a.m. And then she would drive 45 minutes west back to the house, another 15 minutes west to her job. And then I would get off work at 3:30, and I would start hitchhiking west, and I would stop and call her and tell her where to pick me up, because we didn't have cell phones back then. So luckily that only lasted for about 2 weeks, because I got fired for fighting with my foreman. But by that time, within 2 weeks, I had found the people that were drinking at lunch. I was also going out at lunch with them. So I got a job with a guy named Ronnie. And he was a drywall foreman that I met working at the mall. He had met a girl, and he was staying up in Pennsylvania. And I got a job working drywall with Ronnie. And one of my... and what that ended up looking like was we would wake and bake at 6:30 in the morning on the way to work. I would eat my base meal of the day at 9:30, because I didn't want to miss anything that was being passed around at lunch when we were driving around. And then I would have a 6-pack on the way home at 3:30. And some of my college buddies had a part-time job working at a beer distributor. And so I would do that. I would work as a drywall mechanic, and then I would go hang out at the beer distributor, because that's where my friends were. And I eventually got a job there, because up in Pennsylvania at the time, this was like 90, 91, in order to get a case of beer, you had to get it at a beer distributor. You couldn't just go pick up a case of beer. So I did that. So basically, everything that I was doing in my life centered around drinking and drugging. And I got a DWI when I was about 21. Ronnie, who taught me a lot about construction, fired me because he thought I was going to turn state's evidence. He thought I was going to turn into a narc. So I got this job working at... for a hospital that drug tested, that had their own construction department. They had about 30 carpenters and laborers, 6 superintendents / foremen, and I got a job with them. And I worked with them for about 2.5 years, and I basically stayed clean from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. while I was working with them. And there was a point where my best friend CJ, I guess I should tell you about CJ. So my best friend CJ, he and I met when we were in 6th grade. He was one of the football players that I first started drinking with and all that. I remember our guidance counselor had a conversation with us, and he said, you two should just be separate from each other. You are not good with each other. In ninth grade, we were acting out with this teacher that we had for 3 or 4 years, and I got sent to in-school suspension because of my behavior, and he did not. And but when we were 17, I joined the Marines, and I joined the Marines delayed entry program, and I did real well on the ASVAB and all that, and I was going to be, I wanted to be in recon, so I signed up to be infantry. I'm just like this skinny little beanpole of a kid. It's going to be in Marine recon, and CJ and I went up to the recruiter on a Saturday, and CJ went back to take a test, and he came out, and the recruiter said, "Hey, Steve just signed up. He's going in next year." And CJ's jaw dropped, and he joined the Marines too. So we were going to go the Marines buddy style. I'm sure that would have worked out well. Anyway, CJ was one of those guys that was working at the beer distributor, and that's why I hung out with him. And so I'm working for Geisinger, this medical company or this hospital as a carpenter. CJ goes on tour with the Grateful Dead, and he came back, and and I thought I might go on tour with the Grateful Dead. So what I did, I had a full-time job, and so what I did is I bought like 9 tickets for 9 shows on the East Coast. And back then, when you toured with the Dead, like you had to do this mail-in lottery, and it was all chance. And some of my first Dead shows, I didn't even go to the show. I just went to the parking lot and got blitzed out of my mind. But anyway, I'm like about 21. I'm like, am I going to stay clean, sober, and do this job, or am I going to tour? And I went on this mini tour, and I lasted about like 4 or 5 shows. I think it was in Indiana. I was driving. We were driving back to this campground, and there was a big traffic jam. I got like 3 or 4 of my buddies in this Dodge Omni, little hatchback car, and somebody starts running on top of the cars. The cars are all bumper to bumper, and people are blitzed out of their mind, and they just start running, not alongside the cars, on top of the cars. So you hear this boom, boom, boom. These are people damaging the roof of my car and my hood, jump into the next car. My guys could not just sit there while everybody else was having fun, so they took off. So I ended up being left alone in my car. I finally just turned the keys off and went to the campground. And when I woke up the next morning, I wanted to go urinate, and there was, you know how you ever see like those African safari shows where there's a watering hole, and the animals are coming up to the water, and the watering hole's getting smaller and smaller because it's drying up. Well, this was kind of the opposite effect. There were job Johnnies that were overflowing, and people were just walking up to the edge of this pool of urine. And by the way, when I was touring with the Dead, I thought it was going to be like everybody was going to be sharing all their stuff, That never happened either. And I was still looking for that sense of belonging and being part of. And people would be all excited about, I got a Jack Straw, or I got this song. Anyway, long story shorter, I didn't fit in, and I sold the rest of my tickets, and I went back to my job, and I decided I was going to try to get clean. And it wasn't just then. I mean, I went back home and I worked for a while, and it got to the point where I started seeing some consequences of my drinking and drunking. And I tried to I definitely tried to manage my drinking and drugging because, like I said, I never felt like I fit in. Once I found a way to get a nice buzz, I had thought I found the secret to life, you know? And I remember the curve of the road in Pennsylvania coming into the town I grew up in thinking, my mom and sister had a fight, they were stressed out about something, and I was thinking, and I was buzzed, and I was thinking, I have found the secret to life. But that stopped working for me as well as it used to. What happened was, you know, I would just start having all these thoughts while I was drunk and stoned, and I was having consequences of being drunk. And so anyway, I contemplated. And I could never control my drinking. You know, I was one of the guys who would I'd switch from regular beer to Coors Light. I would eat a big meal before we're going out on Friday night. 1 a.m. I'm driving home with one eye shut so that I can try to just make it home. I'm puking and passing out in the parking lot of these bars. I'd start going out later, seeing if I could just stay upright, you know, till the bars close, you know, and I couldn't control my drinking and drugging. So I got to a point where I wanted to quit, and it was really weird. There were just some circumstances where I stopped being outgoing and generous and hanging out with people, and those people started coming to me, you know what I mean? So I one or two times I would call like a alcohol hotline or something, and a person would pick up, so I'd hang up. And it got to the point where I was working as a carpenter, and the deal with the company I was working with is they would give you a promotion. They'd promote you to a foreman, and if you did well, you'd stay at a foreman level, and then you'd become a superintendent. So I'd gotten promoted as a foreman, and I think that God opened a few doors for me, and I actually saw that they were open, and I walked through them, you know? I think everybody has that opportunity, and I think I had the grace to see that opportunity. So, because I'm kind of a low bottom drunk, really. No, high bottom drunk. So I'm working as a superintendent. We're working out of town, and it's a real small job site. It's like maybe 1.5 times as big as this room. It may be, let's just say it's 1.5, 2 times as big as this room. It's like in a downtown Scranton job site. And my boss's boss calls on the phone in the job trailer, and I say, and he goes, "Hey, go get your boss." So I say, "Sure." I put the phone down. I go out to the field to get my boss, and as somebody says something to me, and I start talking to them, and I forget about my boss. So that's no big deal. So that was that was just once. But the very next day, the same thing happened. He called, I said, "Sure, I'll get him." And I'm sitting in the back of the trailer on break, and you can hear the phone. You know that phone that sound it makes when it's been off the hook for a real long time? It's making that sound, and I'm like, literally within a week, I had scheduled a call to the EAP office. What is that? Employee Assistance Program? I don't even know if they still have them. But I made a call because my strategy was get help and save your job. So that was my strategy. And this is God opening the door for me. So I went to that meeting on a Friday, and I took a test. It's Friday after 4, and the lady went into another room to score the test, and she came back and said, "We think you have a problem. We have a bed for you, and you can go tonight." So I was part of this hospital system, and they had their own in-house rehab that was about an hour north of where I grew up. And I was like, I can't go tonight. I've got to get my stuff in order, I'll go next Friday. So, and so recently, just a little diversion. Recently, so one of the things I'm doing as a service is, never mind, I'll tell you this later. I tell her I'll go next week. I go home, and I'm living in a trailer. I got my own trailer, and my mom pulls up into my parking lot, and I tell her I'm going to rehab. And she had no idea that I had a problem. And I think me telling her was the first time I was accountable, because I had tried to quit on my own, but all those people kept coming over and drinking, and I never said, "Hey, I'm not drinking," Anyway, I told my mom I was going to go to rehab. It's a Friday night, and there's this guy, his name's Randy. He was a binge drinker, bad alcoholic. We lived in the same trailer court. My sister and his niece were friends. We knew each other, and we worked together. We worked for construction for this hospital, and he was just a binge drinker. And he had been bragging about how he was running AA meetings, and he went to this rehab. And I thought, and here's another door that God had opened for me. Randy was working construction second shift. There's not a whole lot of second shift construction going on in rural Pennsylvania, but because it was a hospital, he was doing an OR addition. So it's about 7 o'clock or so. I go see Randy on his job site, and I'm asking about the rehab that I'm going to, because this. And he's telling me, and I'm asking about AA, and he says, "Well, you want to check it out? We could go to an AA meeting right now." So, I parked in his parking lot, I walked into the middle of this hospital, I'm asking this guy about stuff, and he offers to take me to an AA meeting, and I felt like I couldn't say no. So that's how I got to my first AA meeting. It was in the basement of the hospital. People would come in from, it was really one of the nicest AA meeting places in town at the time. That home group, Keep It Simple group, met in the hospital, and I don't even think there were many church meetings in Danville. It was mostly that hospital. Anyway, went to that meeting on a Friday night, introduced myself as a marijuana addict. My next door neighbor, Rose, was sober for about 5 years. I remember she used to have like 3 bags of empties every week, and those empties, she just stopped doing that. Anyway, she got sober. She was about 5 years sober. So that was my first meeting. Saturday morning, about like 6 a.m., Ronnie Eccles, the guy that gave me my first line, drank with me, taught me construction, taught me how to roll a joint one-handed, fired me because he thought I was going to become a narc. 6 a.m., he rolls into my driveway, and he's going to rehab. He had gotten in a fight with his wife, and he's going to rehab too. So we had Sunday was our last supper. We had a steak dinner with our dealer, and had beers and everything else. And Ronnie went to rehab Monday, and I did not use Monday. But I had an hour and a half commute, and you could drive an hour and a half on the highway or an hour and 45 minutes on the back roads. And I had this Datsun, and I decided to take the back roads because I was going to be getting sober, and I thought I could just, have this country road. I don't know what I was thinking, but I took the back roads, and my car overheated, and I drove past the gas station and parked the car at the bar, because if you're gonna wait, you gotta let the engine cool before you put water in it, and it's better to do that at a bar than a gas station. So I did that, and the bar was called the White Birch Inn in Hunlock Creek, and my dad's birthday was on the board. My dad used to drink there, and his name was still on the board, and like the third Tuesday of the month, a barber came in and cut your hair, so you didn't even have to stop drinking to get your hair cut. And anyway, that's the White Birch Inn, and I only had 2 beers, but it took the edge off. I remember that. I let the car cooled. I, put more water in it and went home. And so I decided the next night that I would do the same thing, just have a few beers, take the edge off. And this is another God's door opening for me. Somehow it came to me that if I didn't go to rehab on Wednesday, I probably wouldn't go. So I packed my stuff and I went to work and told my boss that I needed to. My last day wasn't going to be Friday; it was going to be today, and Wednesday. So I went to rehab, and I went to rehab 21 days, and at the end of that, the night before I was supposed to be discharged, I asked this counselor. I said, "I don't know what I'm going to do to stay sober," and he said. And this was so important to me, and I don't even know if he said it, but this is how I remember it. He said, "I don't know what you're going to do, but this is what I do." I still hate when somebody in AA talks about we, because you're not my spokesperson. I really don't like people talking you, because you're not my preacher. Anyway, he said, "I don't know what you're going to do, but this is what I do." He shared his experience, and I listened. And he said, I get up in the morning and ask my higher power to stay clean and sober. I go to an AA meeting, I talk to my sponsor, I read some AA literature, and in the evening I thank my higher power for the day I had, good or bad. I was like, damn. So I did that. And when I was in rehab, I didn't have a real strong faith, because I had been praying to God for a lot of stuff and never got any of it, or felt like I didn't get a lot of it. So I'm not sure if it was lack of belief in a God or a definite belief that I wasn't good enough for a God. But anyway, they told me to pray on my knees, and I prayed on my knees in rehab, and I felt a sense of relief. But I was such an egotistical young punk, I decided that the reason I felt relief was it was like some kind of physical reaction when the human body's on their knees and they bend their head, their blood goes a certain way in the brain and they feel relief, Anyway, I did those 5 things. I did a 90 and 90. My Randy, the guy that took me to my first AA meeting, was my contact. He took me to some meetings, and he needed to introduce himself when he was introducing me. So, and he soon became unavailable to take my calls as my sponsor. And eventually I got another sponsor. I stayed sober for about 2.5 years. I was going to school at night, taking architecture classes at a community college. I got laid off in '92. There was a little bit of a recession that affected construction, and I decided to take the layoff and go back to school. I stayed sober, and I ended up transferring to NC State in Raleigh. And I moved to Raleigh in '94. I did what I thought was I got a sponsor. I moved to Raleigh in '94, and I've been here ever since. What my recovery looked like was my first sponsor didn't last long because he wasn't plugged into the rooms. I got another sponsor who basically sent me off on my own to do a 4-step, didn't really give me any coaching or anything. I don't remember. I remember sitting with him and him saying, you need to do more work on this, and I never did any more work on it, and I stopped calling him. I stayed sober on fun and fellowship, you know. I'd be the guy that would dump my problems in the meeting. People would help me live life on life's terms. I stayed sober, or I stayed dry. I moved to Raleigh. I did a few meetings. I think moving is a real risk to relapse, because when I moved, AA was different, you know. Even the cadence of the Lord's Prayer is different, you know. I went back to Pennsylvania and I said the Lord's Prayer like Raleigh style, and some of the old timers there gave me crap about it in Pennsylvania. Anyway, I kind of was fading away from AA, and about 2.5 years sober, and I met a girl who had a boyfriend, who stuck with the boyfriend, and that hurt my feelings, and I ended up going back to AA, and a guy pulled me in, a guy named Chad, who's still my friend and sober, and pulled me back into the rooms, and I stayed sober, and I counted them up. In my first 6 years, I had 8 sponsors, and 5 of them, I ended the relationship with 5 of them because I was unwilling to work steps 4 through 9. Usually I would quit, and then they would tell me that I had quit by firing me. And I was 6 years sober, had graduated school, I think. I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah, I think I had. 6 years sober, and I was interviewing relapsers. And what I found is people that relapse had stopped reading literature, stopped praying, stopped calling their sponsor, stopped going to AA meetings, off in that order. It's like accountability. Only God and me knew that I stopped reading literature. Only God, being my sponsor, knew I stopped calling my sponsor. And only, then people knew that I stopped going to AA meetings. So I got 6 years sober, interviewing relapsers. Basically, I knew that the ice was thin. I didn't want to fall in, and this was another time where God opened the window for me. I got invited to be part of a step group, and I thought it was because I was 6 years sober and I had something to offer. I think it was because I was a single dude who had a house, and so we met at my house on Thursday nights, and the deal was we were going to work the steps, and there was about 12 or 15 of us, and we had to have a sponsor and had to work the steps. So I got a sponsor and started working the steps. And we met for like about a year and a half. And I got up to the 9th step. This was sponsor number 8. I got up to my 9th step. I was unwilling to forgive my mom, did not make amends to my mom, and my sponsor fired me. And I got like 10 guys coming over to my house on Thursday, and I don't have a sponsor, and they're coming over to my house to work the steps. So I don't remember how long I stayed without a sponsor, but it wasn't that long. It might have been a week or two, because I called my sponsor back up and said, okay, I'm ready to do the deal. And he's like, well, we're going to have another interview. And he basically asked me what length was I willing to go. And I told him I would do anything. I finished the steps with him. And he moved away about a year after that. And I got another sponsor who I had from like 2000 to I think to 2014 when he passed away. And I've had my current sponsor from 2014 to whatever it is today. And that's the guy I meet with on a regular basis. And so for me, step one really came down to, I feel like I worked step one before I even got into the rooms. I did everything to try to control and enjoy my drinking. And I could not control my I could either control my drinking or enjoy it, but I couldn't do both. When I was controlling it, I was so focused on not getting messed up that I wasn't really enjoying it. And when I was enjoying it, I was just on the way to oblivion. Oh, and by the way, if somebody could introduce me to oblivion without consequences, I would sign up today. The closest thing that I have to, the closest thing that I have to oblivion right now is skiing really fast, where I'm so scared that all I think about is skiing. I do have a real sense of peace when I'm working a gratitude list and meditating, and that's probably a lot more sustainable than this notion of oblivion. So step two for me, come to believe in a power greater than myself. I didn't believe I was worthy of a God's love, so I used AA as my higher power for a long time. Step three, I think there's a lot of times there's two ways to work a step. There's a formal way, and then like the daily practice it daily. And the formal way was, I said the third step prayer, as it's written in the book, with a group of men who said the third step prayer on their knees in a church of my home group, Raleigh. In that big book, I just realized this about a year or two ago. It says you can say this prayer or a prayer of your own choice, as long as it's kind of in the same vein. So that's how I did the formal third step. And how I try to practice it daily is I ask God to give me the strength to do His will each day. And I try to do that each day. Step four was incredibly important for me. I hesitated and vacillated on that for the longest time. The freedom I got, there's this thing called the Unofficial Guide to the Steps. I did this step study with a group of men, and it's not rocket science. It basically tells you to do the fourth step the way the big book tells you. Column 1, the people that pissed me off. Column 2, what they did to piss me off. Column 3, how it hurt my feelings, which instinct was threatened. And then say the sick man's prayer and fill out column 4, which is my part. And it was very important to do it vertically, because I tried to do it horizontally, like when I would talk about Dr. Brown and his affection for my wife and how it affected my sex and self-esteem and my part. And when I did it horizontally, I kind of just, through denial, I stopped being able to identify my resentment. So for me, it was really important to do it in that vertical format. And the benefit of that was the fifth step, meeting with my sponsor and talking through that, him helping to identify a lot of the patterns that I have. And in step 6, I did it like the big book said. I had a sense of relief, guilt, and understanding from the fifth step, and I was definitely willing to have God remove those defects of character. That's the best time for me to ask for help. And there's times now when I do a 10th step, I'm like, God, help me with this, But that's because I practice those muscles and exercise those muscles, in the 5th step and 6th step. The 8th step, I did not throw away my 4th step, and nobody should throw away their 4th step, because the 8th step is basically written in my 4th step. It's basically the harms I did, the 4th column, my part in it. And the 9th step is being willing to forgive those folks and make amends. And then the 10th step, that's the biggest gift that I have from Alcoholics Anonymous. I really spent too much time on my drunk-a-log. One of the biggest gifts I have from Alcoholics Anonymous is that spiritual axiom: whenever I'm disturbed, the problem lies within me. And there's a guy, Sam Seacrest, outside the meeting at Valley on a Sunday night. he said, if somebody shoots you in the knee and you're still pissed off about it, that's your problem. He said, you should call the law, get that guy arrested, but you should be able to figure out a way to forgive him. And so I've been able to do that. And a lot of times, my part in something, if I'm disturbed by something, 9 times out of 10, it's self-centered fear. It's me thinking that God is not taking care of me. You know, it's my lack of faith and my lack of understanding that God is taking care of me. So when I know that God is taking care of me and I make a mistake at work, it's real easy to say, I made a mistake. What can I do to make it right? When I don't think God is taking care of me and I make a mistake at work or at the house or with friends, I'm looking for ways to blame it on you and duck the responsibility. Step 11, prayer meditation. So I got fired about 1.5 years ago. Another big ass door that God opened for me. As a result of getting fired, I have my own company and I'm the happiest person I've ever been. And a bigger gift was daily meditation and a daily gratitude list. So these Zoom guys, my Zoom buddies, do a gratitude list and text it to each other every day. And I have 8 people that I share a gratitude list with. And it has changed my life. It really has. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm just really grateful for that. And step 11 is to carry this message to other people. You know, I sponsor a guy. I have service positions. I'm looking to give people rides to meetings. And, you know, I was on a meeting today, and it was my Zoom meeting. And there's a lady with 15 years whose husband has a coke problem, and she just found out about it. There's a lady on there that's 90 days sober. There's a lady there that she lost her husband about 4 years ago. And then there's a guy sharing about how other people sharing about their struggles helps him. And I just realized that I couldn't really think of a great metaphor. Like, are we all on the same train out in recovery, or are we all swimming in the same stream? But I just felt like so grateful that I was part of a group of people that could share their struggles and how they're moving forward, share their struggles and successes each day. And I think it's just walking towards recovery and walking towards God, you know? And I'm really grateful that I have this gift of Alcoholics Anonymous, that I can share that with people that I've never met, and I can share that in a room with y'all. And I'm really grateful. And what I would say is, if nothing else, Alcoholics Anonymous works. If it's not working for you right now, well, here I am saying you. If it's not working for me, I find another way to work it. There's so many different people and so many different types of meetings that I have found my tribe, and I've had to switch groups and I've had to switch tribes to fit in, but I'm so grateful to be in the middle right now. So thank you very much.